What if life was just waiting? Not for success, not for love, but for something. Something that may never come. In a world driven by goals, deadlines, and dopamine hits, Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot stands as a bizarre, haunting reflection of our deepest existential dread. If you've ever scrolled through your feed late at night wondering, what's the point? This play might just be your mirror. Welcome to a place where time loops endlessly, where characters repeat themselves like broken algorithms, and where hope is both the fuel and the poison. Beckett doesn't give us answers. Instead, he gives us the silence between thoughts, the awkward pause between purpose and absurdity. And that's exactly what makes this play timeless and terrifyingly modern. "Nothing to be done," says Estragon, right at the beginning. That line echoes louder today than ever, especially in a world that constantly tells us to hustle, to improve, to be more. The two main characters, Vladimir and Estragon, wait endlessly for someone named Godot, a figure who never arrives, never calls, and never explains himself. Sound familiar? Like waiting for a text, a job offer, or even some meaning to show up? This is not just a play. It's a thought experiment, a psychological loop, a spiritual desert. Philosophers like Albert Camus, who wrote about the absurd hero in the myth of Sisyphus, would nod in grim agreement. Camus argued that the real struggle is not in finding meaning, but in confronting its absence without flinching. Beckett doesn't flinch. He laughs, shrugs, and lights another cigarette. And yet, despite its bleakness, Waiting for Godot is oddly funny. It's dry, sharp, and loaded with the kind of humor that only makes sense at 3 a.m., when everything feels pointless, but you're still scrolling. It's tragicomedy in its purest form, where the tragedy is that we're all waiting, and the comedy is that we pretend not to notice. So why does this matter now? Because we are, all of us, waiting. For change, for clarity, for something, anything, to give our days structure. But what if Godot is never coming? What if the waiting is the point? This video dives into the existential brilliance of waiting for Godot, the absurdity of human routine, and the power of accepting meaninglessness, not with despair, but with a wink. Stay with me, because in the silence between lines, you might just hear something that sounds a lot like truth. Beckett strips everything down. There's no plot, no climax, no resolution, just two men, a tree, a road, and the endless passage of time. It's theater without makeup. And maybe that's why it hits so hard. Because beneath the Netflix shows and productivity hacks, isn't that what life often feels like? Waiting, talking, repeating ourselves, filling the silence with distractions. Even their conversations loop like broken code. Estragon forgets, Vladimir repeats. Every day seems like the last. It's as if memory is malfunctioning, or maybe deliberately malfunctioned, to protect them from realizing the futility of their routine. And yet, they stay. They wait. They cling to the hope that maybe today, Godot will come. That hope is crucial. It's what keeps them going. And maybe that's the cruelest trick of all. Because Godot might represent God, salvation, purpose, or simply tomorrow. And tomorrow, as we know, never quite arrives the way we expect. There's something disturbingly relatable about that. We too build our lives around some future version of happiness, some event that will fix it all. But Beckett whispers in our ear, what if that moment never comes? Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Beckett flips that on its head. He asks, what if there is no why? Can we still bear the how? And the answer somehow seems to be yes. Through ritual, through companionship, through absurd little habits like boot wearing and hat switching, Vladimir and Estragon endure. They mock each other. They comfort each other. They are each other's distraction, and perhaps each other's salvation. This, perhaps, is the most quietly powerful theme in Waiting for Godot, the necessity of human connection in the face of the void. Because even if the universe is silent, Even if Godot never shows, as long as there's someone to wait with, the silence becomes a little less unbearable. The play also mocks the idea of progress. Pozzo and Lucky, the two other characters, perform their own strange dance of dominance and dependence. Pozzo speaks like a parody of authority, all pomp and nonsense. Lucky, enslaved and overburdened, gives a single speech, one that devolves into gibberish and chaos. It's academia, theology, politics, reduced to noise. It's Beckett laughing at systems, mocking the illusion that anyone really knows anything. You might find all of this depressing, but Beckett doesn't write with despair. He writes with clarity, with brutal, surgical honesty. And somehow, in that honesty, there's a strange comfort. He doesn't try to uplift or inspire. He simply holds up a mirror. And in that reflection, absurd and raw, we recognize ourselves. In a way, Waiting for Godot is less about the meaning of life and more about the structure of waiting itself, how we shape our days with small rituals, habits, and repeated lines just to make the void feel less vast. The characters debate leaving, they consider hanging themselves, they dream of endings, but they never move. That's the real horror Beckett reveals, not death, but endless continuation. And isn't that eerily close to how modern life feels sometimes? The infinite scroll, the calendar that keeps filling itself, the sense that we're always on the verge of something, but never quite arriving. Beckett saw this long before the age of screens and swipes. He understood that the human condition wasn't changing, it was just dressing itself differently. Some critics call the play nihilistic, but that misses the point. Beckett doesn't tell us that nothing matters. He shows us what happens when everything is stripped away, and we're left with only ourselves and each other. And maybe that's why the play endures. Because despite its silence, its repetition, its refusal to deliver catharsis, it's about us. Our fears, our laughter, our stubbornness, our resilience. And let's not forget, these characters never truly despair. They argue, they complain, but they stay. They wait. There's something deeply human in that act. Even without promises, they keep showing up. And in today's world, where hope is often monetized and meaning is outsourced, that kind of quiet perseverance feels almost radical. But maybe the brilliance of Waiting for Godot is that it doesn't let you off the hook. It doesn't give you a climax, a catharsis, or even the satisfaction of a character arc. It simply holds a mirror and asks, "Isn't this you?" Sitting under your own barren tree, talking, doubting, pacing back and forth, not because you have somewhere to go, but because standing still is unbearable. And if that sounds familiar, it's because Dostoevsky saw it too, long before the world was ready to call it Absurdism. In Notes from Underground, the narrator rants and raves in isolation, obsessed with freedom, yet paralyzed by it. He is not unlike Vladimir or Estragon. He overthinks, he overfeels, and he waits for recognition, for justice, for something undefined. And just like Beckett's characters, he talks not to communicate, but to escape silence. To be too conscious is an illness, a real thoroughgoing illness. Dostoevsky wrote that, and Beckett built a stage around it. Both saw that thinking can become a cage, that waiting can become a religion, that we cling to the idea of something coming, Godot, salvation, forgiveness, not because we believe in it, but because we don't know what to do without it. In this way, Beckett and Dostoevsky are not opposites, but siblings, one in silence, the other in screams. Beckett strips the world down to two men and a tree. Dostoevsky packs it with noise, faith, contradiction. But both ask the same question. How do we live when meaning no longer arrives on schedule? And in that question, Godot becomes more than a man. We start to see him as time, purpose, even love. Things we claim to wait for, while secretly fearing their arrival. Because what if they come, and we're still the same? So here we are, still waiting. Waiting for a reply, a purpose, a sign that something's about to change. Like Estragon adjusting his boot for the 100th time. Like Vladimir peering into the distance for someone who never shows. We scroll, we swipe, we keep in touch, yet underneath it all we're still asking the same ancient question. What are we waiting for? And will it save us? Maybe the genius of Beckett and Dostoevsky before him is that they don't offer a solution. They don't tell us to stop waiting or to keep waiting. They just let us sit in it, uncomfortably, consciously. And maybe that's what we need. Not answers, but better questions. Not final acts, but honest pauses. So next time you find yourself stuck between action and inaction, between meaning and absurdity, ask yourself, is Godot really late, or was he never coming? And if he never was, maybe the waiting was the point all along.